Hey, welcome to another episode of the Growth and Scaling Sessions. I'm your host, Todd Westra, and I am so excited today to have you all here to discuss with us the topic of exit strategy. Exit strategy. What do you mean, Todd? Exit strategy. This is something that is hugely important that most people ignore and aren't thinking about. And I want to tell you something. If you are not thinking about your exit, you're probably not growing towards anything. A lot of people get stuck in their growth cycles by not thinking about to what end are they growing their business, and they get kind of bored. They get to a certain point where revenue's good, they've got some great staff, they got a great team, and they just aren't thinking, what am I going to do to get myself out of this business? Who would want to take over this business? And is it worth selling right now? These are all great questions that we're going to talk to some specialists today about how to be thinking about your exit and what should you be focusing on as a business operator in terms of what am I supposed to be planning towards? What should I be thinking about? And so today we're going to introduce 4 great guests. These panelists are all specialists in their own way in different elements of exit planning, exit strategy, and all of the above. So first we're going to jump in with a guest, Jason Weiss. Jason, tell us who you are and what do you do?
So my name is Jason Weiss. I am a fractional general counsel. So what does that mean? That means that I work with all different types of businesses, individuals, corporations, owners, buyers, sellers, whatever it is. I have a small group of clientele, and I handle all of their legal needs, from something as simple as my spouse got a speeding ticket to, hey, we just got sued in a federal class action. So I do it all. And what I love about that is it allows me to really get involved with the business and the business owners. It's not just a one-hit wonder where I handle a piece of litigation. I really get into the business. I learn the business. I love the business. And it's just awesome. The only problem I ever have is I get involved with a client sometimes, and all I want to do is, continue down that path. But hey, I've got others I got to help. So that's what it's all about.
Jason, I think it's great because the only thing better than having a lawyer is have a fractional lawyer. So I'm just kidding.
Well, people love the fact that they know it's a fixed fee each month. There really aren't surprises.
I'm totally bought in, man. I love the idea. I love the concept, and I love how you're helping people with this. Our next guest, he's got 2 D's in his name, and it looks a lot like mine. Todd Sullivan, tell us who you are and what do you do?
Todd, thank you for having me. This is fantastic. So yes, Todd Sullivan, serial entrepreneur for the last 20 plus years. I've built and sold 4 businesses. The last 3 were backed by venture capital firms. And I just decided after my last exit that I needed to give back to my fellow founders, and found that the exit, right, along that entrepreneurial journey, the exit, that's the biggest black box for us. So built a company called Exit Weiss, and it's all about getting really smart about planning for an exit. What are all the different attributes of an exit? And when you're ready, we build the very best team of M&A experts from all around the world to help you maximize your outcome.
Love it. Yep. Everyone wants to maximize their outcome because, I mean, what's the point of building something amazing if you're not going to get something awesome out of it, right?
Absolutely.
Todd, thank you. Kent Lewis. Kent, tell us who you are and how do you contribute to this conversation?
Yes, Kent Lewis. I'm a 10-time agency, recovering agency executive person. I co-founded 2 agencies, founded 2 agencies, exited a few of them, and most recently I sold, after 22 years, my agency last March, and have helped and kind of wrapped up the transition of my team and my clients and all the operational stuff. And I'm looking for my next role as a thought leader within probably a MarTech SaaS type of company.
Love it. Love it. Love it. And that brings us finally to Kyle, who has got the most amazing creative M&A associated business name ever. I'm surprised you didn't put that on our feeder. Kyle, tell us who you are and what you do.
Hey Todd, first of all, I'm honored to be here with a distinguished panel. You just have a knack of getting the top of the top, the best of the best together. So I just feel humbled, even just being part of this distinguished group here. So, yeah, my name is Kyle Griffith. I'm the managing partner of the NYBB Group. We are a 20-year mergers and acquisitions company, and we're just passionate about helping business owners with their legacy and transferring that to buyers that are looking to create their own legacy for themselves. So we help business owners that are burnt out, that are looking to retire. We help them sell their business, help them transition from business ownership into playing more golf and hanging out with their grandkids and doing more fun stuff with their loved ones. And I'm very passionate about helping buyers, find businesses, explore opportunities to invest and support their families.
Right.
Years ago, I jumped back into entrepreneurship as a founder myself, and I started a company called M&A Network. And the main reason I started that company, about 9 out of 10 of my clients are just not ready for an exit. That's why I'm really passionate about this topic here. I'm going to learn a lot. I'm on my pad. I'm going to take some notes. A lot of business owners are just not ready to transition. They don't have the team, don't have resources. So it's been my journey to help business owners put all that together, resources, team, network to help them successfully either acquire or exit their business.
I love it. I love it. And for all of you, I mean, as you can see, Kent, he's got his golf shirt on. I think that's what he's been doing, with his exits that he's had. Kyle, you're on the big screen right now. Talk to us about not being ready to exit and people who are ready to exit. What do you see as the biggest differences? How do you know when someone's ready to exit? What should they be thinking about when they're thinking about exiting their company?
By the way, how much time do we have, by the way? Just checking on time. This is a big topic.
I know it's a big topic.
I want to hear from the other folks as well.
Give me your best 30 seconds, buddy.
So let's put the financials and numbers aside. That's a no-brainer. I think the biggest challenge is the people's and process. I mean, having a team-run business so the owner can step away, take vacation, and when they step away, the business is not going to go under, right? So as a buyer looking to buy a business or a seller looking to exit, buyers are looking for businesses with some infrastructure, some team, some processes. Right. The buyers are going to come in and fix your mess, right? So I think the biggest thing is the people component, the culture piece, the processes. Those are the toughest aspects, in my opinion, to fix. The finances, numbers, all the other things can be fixed, but the people process, I think, is the one you want to tackle first.
I love it. Todd, what can you do to speak to that? Because I think obviously part of your exit Weiss strategy has got to include some things like that. What can you do to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the financials are a no-brainer at the beginning. And I think the number of founders that we run into where their books are just really not in order or not, they're not available to present to buyers in the way that buyers want to see it. And Kyle pointed that out, right? That's kind of the obvious. For me, if I'm going to add to it, I think more the emotional side. Is a founder really ready for the next stage of life? So are you going to sell to a private equity firm and roll some equity and be part of the growth story? Or are you looking to take all your chips off the table and go play golf? Whatever that is, you really have to have in mind, what is your ideal next step look like? And start planning for that. We've seen too many founders sell a business and then say, now what do I do? And I think that really leads to, this sense of regret that a lot of founders have. But you can prepare yourself mentally, emotionally, and even financially. Taking a look at what you're going to do with those dollars makes a lot of sense.
Right. There's honestly so much to think about, and it stresses people out. And I think that's why a lot of people don't think about it. But Jason, talk to us about from a legal standpoint, what should you have ready at the bare minimum in kind of thinking about exit? What do you need to have prepared legally to make sure you don't get screwed on your exit?
So I'm going to put on my lawyer hat for 1 second. So nothing I say today is to be deemed legal advice. If you're listening and you're streaming, this is not legal advice. You haven't hired an attorney, and there is no attorney-client privilege here. So rely on nothing that these other 4 gentlemen, they have plenty to say that's right on, and listen to them, but don't listen to the lawyer, okay?
I love the disclaimer.
There's my disclaimer. I would start just straight up with disclaimers. That's the biggest thing. You want to sell your business? first thing that you should do is get with somebody like one of these gentlemen here, sign an NDA. People don't want to hear that there's blood in the water. Oh my God, XYZ company is getting ready to sell. What's going on there? Can I get it on the cheap? Can I get it this? Can I breach my contracts? Can I cancel with them? First and foremost is hush, hush, NDA, NDA, NDA. That's where I would start.
I love it.
Then hiring someone who knows what they're doing. Get your books and records in order. Get your accountings in order. Your taxes in order. Get everything in order. Make it in a nice, pretty box and make it so that you are attractive to someone that wants to come in. I mean, I was taking notes.
Love it.
Something that every single one of you said, I took notes. Own a small business, want to take vacation, fearful that you can't do it. Go ahead and what's the exit strategy? What, to make millions and millions of dollars, and then what? So I think just having a plan and working with someone like one of these gentlemen and getting that plan together is awesome. You need an attorney involved in the beginning to help you. And then once the deal is in place, then we paper what you all negotiate. We don't make
100%
decisions. We only help protect your legal tush.
So Kent, all that being said, you've exited a couple times. Tell us about those exits. What did you do differently on the second one that you wish you would have done on the first one? I guess that would be a good question to ask.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I will say that the other exits were misleading in that I was bought out willingly or unwillingly from two of those, and then I merged the third one. I built, I created two agencies, and after 5 years, I'm like, why do I have two agencies? And I merged them. So the one main exit I had with Anvil, I learned quite a bit, and I wrote 2 articles. One on what I learned to prepare for the exit, and the other was how to maximize the chances of a successful M&A once you've shook hands, right? What do you do next? So I guess what I've learned in the past year is that everything can look good, but you can probably never do too much homework, particularly on cultural fit. In the service business, we don't make widgets. It's all about, it's all about the people are the product. So I thought that I had a pretty good grip on the cultural alignment. One of the lessons I learned is the Midwest is not the West Coast. It's not the East Coast. So the Portland, work lifestyle is very different than the Midwest. So I think if you're looking to sell, you sell to somebody who's very experienced in it, and it's a private equity firm, or that's what they do. Otherwise, you got to spend extra time on due diligence for things like cultural fit, leadership fit, alignment. I will also say, from being at 10 agencies now, what owners and founders and executives say are the core mission, vision, and values, the goals and purpose, can be nothing more than lip service. You have to make sure that they're living their values as much as you live yours, and that those are aligned.
I love it. Alignment of those values is huge, huge, huge. And Kyle, I want to ask you specifically, because you deal with a lot of people like Kent, and in terms of those agency style exits and professional services and things like that. Tell us a little bit about those exits versus, we'll follow up with Todd talking about some of the larger exits where you've got huge teams and huge processes and huge things that he's dealing with. Kyle, what are some things that people just aren't thinking about when they're on a professional services group industry or things like that they don't even know if they can exit? You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I'm just taking notes while I want to speak in here, because I want to touch a little bit of each one. So we're in that lower mid-market space. Our deals, as far as enterprise value, are typically fall between 5 to 30.
Right.
Worked on larger and smaller, obviously. But to answer your question, one thing that is often overlooked is the values. And I like to have this conversation with both parties. I want to understand the seller's motivations, what's happening in their life, because all about their legacy and maintaining their lifestyle post-sale.
Yeah.
And the buyers as well, why are you investing in the business to begin with? Like, what are your motivations? What's your passion? Because it's like that first date, right? So
Yeah.
this buyer doesn't want to know anything about what money you have in the bank and where you came, they want to know where you came from. You want to know your core values. They want to learn about you as a person, and that culture fit is very important. So that's often overlooked. We see too many buyers just jumping in the jugular. Hey, let me see your numbers. Let me see your numbers.
Yeah.
You're going to get to the numbers, and that's very important. You can't get around from that. But just understanding what's your deep down passions and motivations, why it is you want to invest in name the business. Just think about that first date. Like, why you? Why should this seller actually pick you as a candidate as opposed to all the other buyers, all the other sharks that are in the water,
right,
so to speak?
There are a lot of sharks in the water. Jason, what triggered you there?
The sharks. That was it. Sharks in the water. And I said it earlier. I said, smell the blood in the water, because, sometimes you want to leave because you want to change, you want to transition. And sometimes you're out there and people are looking for fire sales. And also, and I'm sure all these gentlemen can say all the time, there are tons of tire kickers out there.
Yeah.
Tons. And I think what Kyle said is huge. The motivation, right? Do you want to be a passive owner? Do you want to be hands-on? Do you want to change the entire culture? Do you want to keep it the way it is? Like, these are all massive questions that need to be answered before you even get legal involved, other than that NDA, of course.
Agreed. So Todd, to Kyle's point and Jason's point, you get the NDA in place with someone who's tire kicking. In your cases, your deal values are a little bit larger. It's all a similar game, though, is it not?
Yeah.
I mean, whether you're selling a services business or a big behemoth, what are you looking at?
The process can be similar. Just to clarify, we sell businesses with enterprise value somewhere between 25 million on the low side to 500 million on the top side. We certainly have outliers on both. And, our general advice to every founder is that you start with surrounding yourself with the best possible industry specific investment banker, then M&A attorney, then tax accounting, and we build that team. And so what gets really interesting is when you get so industry specific, we find somebody that's already sold your business before, and they know that buyer pool really, really, really well. So to everyone's point around culture, you can do your own kind of due diligence, right? And everybody presents the facade that they want to present. But your banker who has sold to these companies before knows what the outcomes are really like when you sell to that public company or a private equity firm. They know what the next 6 months, the next 6 years are going to look like. So you can really lean on them to know what that cultural fit may or may not end up looking like.
Right. No, it's hugely important. And you and Kyle have both talked about this coming together of a team of people. For someone who's never exited, how do you know who you need to get involved in an exit?
Well, I think that's that's the biggest question, right? These people, founders, business owners, they're brilliant, and they've jumped over every fence to build the business that they have today, right? So they know so much more today than they did at the beginning. But to expect any of us to be an expert at selling a business, having never done it before, is ridiculous, right? So that is where we start. You need a professional team. And that team really, for us, starts with very specific industry insight, industry relationships, buyer relationships. And then we surround you with what's needed, whether it's quality of earnings or it's private wealth management, right? Every team gets a little bit different. The process itself, I think, is very similar, right? You're going to maybe on smaller deals, you're broadcasting a little bit more to buyers, and they tend to be more local. Where on the bigger deals, they tend to be relationship driven. It's a little bit more private, a little bit more targeted to the buyer pool. Hopefully that helps.
No, it does. And I'd love for those listening, I would love for you to post in the chat. Have you ever considered your exit strategy? If so, are you moving towards it right now? Like, are you looking to sell? Are you looking to acquire more businesses and grow that way? Are you looking to hand this off to your kids? Like, is it a legacy play? There's nothing wrong with any of those motions. But, Kyle, help us understand here, because one of the things, and I want to poke up on the screen here, Kyle's one of his business sites that I just love. He's built a network around education, around helping people understand what needs to be done around their M&A strategy, and it literally is called M&A, spelled uniquely. I think this is when I first met Kyle, this is one of the things I love most about what he did, is this creative name play. Kyle, Todd just talked about the network that he brings together for people. What kind of education is there out there for people who want to, at some point, exit? They don't know where to go.
Hey, first of all, I'll love to take the credit for the name, but it all goes back to having a team. So I have a very good CMO, and we brainstormed on a couple of names. We actually had a name change when you first started, and
I love it.
Great team in place. Going back to the team, so your question along who should be involved? Can you mind restating?
Yeah, it's like where do people learn? Where do they get information? Because to Todd's point, Let me jump in. You've worked all these years to grow your business and build your business, but now it's like exit time. Who teaches you?
I'm gonna piss a couple people off if that's okay. So a lot of professionals do not communicate, do not coordinate. A lot of CPAs don't really understand their client's business, the same as the attorney. Typically, when you sell a business, the CPA could potentially lose a client. So it's a very uncomfortable conversation, but it's one that needs to be had, because if you're speaking in the best interest of the client and you want to help them, like we sold a distribution company, and the buyer actually retained the CPA because they did a great job in representing the client.
Right.
But a lot of times sellers that are selling their business is their first venture in this. A lot of times this is the first venture for their professionals as well. So when we are engaging with clients, you want to know first, the top 3 people we want to meet is their attorney, their CPA, and their financial planner, right? We need to help them understand what their net proceeds is going to be post-sale. Right. I can't tell you, well, it doesn't happen anymore because we have a process now, but it has happened in the past where we actually at closing, and the seller wants us to go back and get additional money because he just did his retirement plan, and his financial advisor says, I need a couple extra $100 grand here. It was $500 in this particular case. So now we want to make sure everyone is on the same page, and if there are gaps in there, we want to make those recommendations. So what we did with M&A, we did our best to vet. We have a committee that vets professionals that are experts in their respective fields. So a client comes to us and needs to prepare for an acquisition or prepare for an exit, we have everyone in-house that can help them. We have the experts that can help them, whether it be working in their tax strategy, whether they're looking to relocate to another state for tax purposes, or they need help with their team structure and so on. So that having a team in place is key. But it always going to start from that key advisor. A lot of times it's their financial advisor, the attorney, or the CPA. That's usually the conduit to other professionals that usually they recommend in. But a lot of times, I can't tell you how many times, and I'm sure Todd and Jason and Ken can relate to this, there are CPAs that do not know what quality of earnings is. Just let that sink in for a second. I having to explain how to calculate, how to determine quality of earnings on a company. So so having the right people that's knowledgeable of the process is definitely key.
I think both you and Todd are singing the same song, which is talk to people who play this game regularly, and they'll point you in the right directions. And yes, it may cost you some money, but if it costs you some money to make more money, do it, please. Do it, please. Kent, one of the things that a lot of people aren't thinking about is the type of play that you made recently, and you alluded to this earlier in the conversation. But an exit doesn't always mean I'm shooting for the moon and I want my business to exit for $100 bajillion and I'm gonna never work again the rest of my life. What kind of transition did you make out of your agency in a strategic acquisition play that you recently did?
So, and my goal after running an agency for 22 years was to get out of running an agency. So I didn't want, I didn't want to keep doing the same thing. And even though I was running a fairly efficient and profitable agency, I was, been doing it a long time. So what I wanted in my exit was to continue on, because I cared about my clients and my team. I wanted to make sure they had smooth landings. So I wanted to stay on as long as I could muster it, as long as we could collectively stomach it, to to transition everything, sunset the brand, whatever, which I did, and then just continue to be a thought leader. I just love speaking and writing and pitching the media. My background was in PR originally. And so, so that was the original idea. I think when push comes to shove, I think a company, agency or not, they either get the value of a thought leader and the value of PR and third-party validation, or they don't. And in this case, I think that there's better alignment for me working at an agency now that I've wrapped up all my core responsibilities of going to for a brand that works for me. So what did I learn? I think intent, it can be fantastic. I think setting expectations is essential, getting things on paper, agreeing on goals and KPIs, et cetera. But at the end of the day, I think there's just a thing you can't totally know is how will it really play out when everybody's sitting in that moment that they all agreed on. And that's the challenge. I don't know an answer for how to solve that other than for dating as long as you can, you know?
I love it. And Ken, the reason I know about your story is you are a guest on my podcast, the Growth and Scaling Podcast. And we talked about Ken's exit, and we talked about Ken's agency and what he built and why he transitioned into this other role as CMO under the acquiring company, as opposed to having to run all the daily blah, blah of your own business, which I think is a fantastic thing. And if you haven't listened to the podcast, go to this link below, links.thegaspodcast.com. It is so fun. We've got over 90 guests just in the last 3 months. Wow. Who have shared their stories about growth and scaling, and some lead to exit, some don't. It's just really fun. It's a great show. You know, Todd, I mean, Jason, as you have been listening to the conversation, I know that what you're thinking is, okay, why am I here? Why am I talking about this? Todd, Jason, I love the fact that every good company needs to have in place the right legal structure, the right legal entity, you know, how you set that up in the beginning. And as you're thinking of exit is so critical. And I'm sure Kent could talk more about, was he set up the right way for the right, you know, for those acquisitions? Jason, what can you help us with in that regards? How should people be thinking about that element of an exit?
So it was something that I think Kyle said, and when I was a young attorney before it was all this gray, I had a partner that I worked for, and he would always say, we're like the Fram oil filters. And I'll let that sink in because maybe some of us on the call are old enough to know that, but I'm sure other people aren't. You pay now or pay later. And it's easier to pay now to have something done the right way than to pay later to have it undone and then redone. So one of the things that, again, as a fractional general counsel, clients aren't always concerned about every time they pick up their phone and give a call that it's, you know, oh my God, it just ran me $300 to talk with him about, you know, for 15 minutes.
Right.
It's more along the lines of, you know, they can ask me freely, which is great. Get legal involved in everything. I always say that. And I want to be part of the business. I want to know the business. I want to know the inner workings. Let me know how we build the house, how we build the widget, how we build the company, so that I know what to look for when you're selling.
Right.
You want to sell? Awesome. That's great. I'm going to get paid for my time. You're going to get it. If I did a phenomenal job, maybe I stay on. If I didn't do a phenomenal job, that's okay. And I have, you know, other clients. So at the end of the day, my job is to protect the company or the client, depending on who my client is in each situation. And I say that because sometimes my client is the actual individuals who are selling. Sometimes my client is the business. And oftentimes my clients are the buyers. Can't be all three and can't even be two. Pick one, stick with it, run the way it is, and hopefully you bet on the right horse.
I love it. I love it. Now, as we close this thing up, because yes, all good things must come to an end. This conversation has
are we exiting, Todd? That's what it is.
We are exiting. And he is positive we are exiting.
we will be exiting this strategy here shortly. All good things come to an end. I guess I would love to get as final thoughts from each of you. You know, in reflecting on the conversation that we've just had and thinking about the people who are actually listening to this episode, you know, I would love to get your last tidbits of advice. What are the 3 things that you think, and maybe 2 things, what are the 2 things that you think every business operator out there should be thinking about right now if they want to exit in the next 5 years? What are the 2 things that you feel like you should be really thinking about in trying to prepare for your biggest exit or best possible scenario in an exit in the next 5 years? Jason, you're already on the big screen. Give us your 2 things.
I would probably say the 2 biggest things are, 1, to make sure everything is buttoned down legally and, you know, you have protection for your assets, which could be, you know, intellectual property, websites, domain, likeness, and all of that. And number 2 would be to consult with one of these 3 gentlemen on this podcast about what you should be doing to plan ahead. You got 5 years to plan ahead. Now you have your roadmap. So if you spoke with one of these 3 gentlemen or all 3 of these gentlemen, they might be able to tell you got a 5-year plan. Great. This is what you should be. Keep me in touch along the way.
Love it. Love it. Kent, what do you think?
Yeah. So per one of my articles, I would say one element that I would keep in mind during the M&A dance and post-merger or acquisition would be over-communicating. I'm an over-communicator. I think it minimized any future friction from my perspective during this whole experience the last year and a half, 2 years. But the other one is, the biggest lesson I could say is, I drove my M&A terms based on tax advantage. So I wanted to keep more of every dollar, lowered the upfront payment, took a little more equity, you know, carried the note for the interest expense, all of that. That's all great as long as they can finish the payout. Because, you know, the goal was for me to shift the risk over to the buyer, but I took a lot more of it for the tax advantage. Now, I'd say it's cool to keep 70 to 80 cents of every dollar, but it doesn't matter if you keep 80 cents of nothing if there's a default. Of course, you know, personal guarantees, all of those things can help. But in the end, balancing that tax advantage strategy versus the risk reward and your comfort of the ability to pay a full term on the cash side.
That's great advice. I love that. Todd.
Yep.
What are your thoughts?
So yeah, for somebody that's thinking about exiting a business in the next 5 years, I think you just got to get really smart as you can about the M&A process. And that is going to sites like Kyle's M&A. You can go to ExitWise. There are lots of sources to learn about it and get the nomenclature down. So when people are spouting off things, you have some idea of what a transaction looks like, what it costs, the different types of buyers, the structures. So first is kind of educate yourself behind the scenes. And then I would say the second is kind of maybe twofold, in that understand that buyers are buying your future cash flows. So if you built this business up, and now it's starting to plateau and you're like, hey, I'm done, I want out, you're not going to get a premium on that business. They're buying the future. So we use a lot of like sports analogies. And so I like to think about selling in the 4th or 5th inning. You know, you've got a lead, you put runs on the board, the heart of the lineup is coming up, and you look so attractive to buyers because they're going to buy those future innings. And so that would be the second piece of advice. But in order to do that, you really need to understand your personal ROI, whether you have investors or you own the whole thing. Could your time is an important component of what you've invested in this. Could your exit today return a better return on your invested dollars and invested time than waiting 5 years? So understanding what your valuation is today and what it could be in the future, I think getting smart around that makes a lot of sense for founders.
It's fantastic advice. Fantastic advice. Kyle, we're going to close up with you, buddy. What do you got for us?
Some great advice. Todd mentioned earlier about just taking a 5-year lookout or 10-year lookout, exactly, seeing where you want to be in 5-10 years. The problem is a lot of business owners don't even know where they're at today, right? So you have to be able to measure your performance so you can actually scale and grow and get prepared for an exit. So my first step would be, getting some sort of an assessment done, an exit prep assessment to see where you're at. If your goal is to retire And as Ken say, you want to maximize or minimize how much taxes you pay and how much money you keep. If your goal is, hey, I need 20 million to get out of this business, and your business is worth 10 million, now you have a $10 million gap. How are you going to close this gap? Are you going to grow organically, or are you going to grow through acquisition? What's your game plan? So my first tip would be get some sort of a exit readiness assessment done or evaluation. We do those here at the NYBB group. The next tip would be to do your research and start putting your team together and just start gathering information, getting together with folks like Todd and Kent and Jason, other professionals who have been there, done that, specifically those who have expertise in your particular field that knows the marketplace. So that's a tip 2, getting your deal team together, starting with your internal circle first and getting recommendations in, who can help you take things to the next level and transition. And Todd, I'm gonna give you guys a bonus tip if that's okay.
Hit it.
Many business owners, Jason has his notepad. Yes, you probably know all this stuff already, but I'll give a bonus tip. Many business owners are just stuck in their bubble, like they just stay in their comfort zone, and you need to get out of your comfort zone. Participate in your local trade association, and have conversation with other business owners that in your space, or you may be in California, they may be in Michigan. Find out what's happening, best practices, and talk about, hey, anyone that's going to, if you could get conversations about folks who's been through an exit or have acquired, just getting these nuances, getting information from folks who've been there within your trade association. And lastly, join a mastermind with other business owners. Yeah. And, a lot of great things can happen in a mastermind. We do those with the M&A network. That would be my final tip, getting together with other business owners that are like-minded, who you are, that are doing the same thing and have the ultimate goal in the end.
It's great advice.
I love it. Kyle, that's awesome advice. All 4 of you guys, this has been a really fun panel. I appreciate all of you so much for being part of it. I will just say in closing, as a founder, as an operator, and as someone who has exited multiple businesses, I will tell you right now that the biggest mistake I have made is trying to do most of it on my own. And you've got to understand that you just don't know exits like these specialists do over here. And so when you think about running your business, you may be the best at your business and maybe no one can replace you. That's okay. When it comes to exiting, you want to get the maximum value that you can. And I would just say, for my advice, make sure you're talking to people ahead of time. If you're thinking 5 years, start talking now. What should I be doing to increase my valuation? What can I be doing to, in Ken's case, align myself with a strategic partner that will take over all the headache that I don't want to deal with anymore? Because I'm telling you, sometimes the best part of an exit is just relieving yourself of some of the stress and doing the thing that you love doing, why you started the business to begin with, which I totally appreciate about Ken. Jason, what did you just throw up there?
Backwards NDA.
NDA, and get your NDA signed. Yes, thank you. And so as you guys start thinking about your exits, please reach out to these people on the screen right now. Do some research, look at YouTube. I mean, just figure out what you don't know, because I promise you, exiting is not the same as launching. Launching is not the same as growth and scaling. There are multiple stages of your business you need to understand that are different. They're not the same thing. And so you may be an awesome launch person, horrible growth guy. Maybe an awesome growth guy, horrible exit player. Just figure out where your strengths are and align yourself with people like these people over here, and you're going to have the best exit you could possibly think of. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I'm so grateful to have shared this time with you guys, and we look forward to catching all of you on the next session of the Growth and Scaling Sessions every Wednesday. We'll see you later.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Todd. This was great. Appreciate it.